Made of Glass, Chapter 3. His face is everything. You can't stand and can't stand to be without. You think that's what makes him both annoying and the only person you'd ever tolerate for this long. What do you think you're doing? Bakugo and the rest of the group look up at you, but you pay no mind to the others. Your only focus is Bakugo. His eyes slowly move over your thighs, then over your waist, tracing up your left arm, still semi-slammed on the table, and finally, your face. Every line etched into your glare, he meets your eyes. You notice the small twitch of his mouth, but other than that, his scowl stays the same. It only does to fuel the flame in your stomach. Oh, hey, YN, I thought that was you, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't say hi. Kaminari laughs awkwardly. You pay him no mind, intent on only speaking to Bakugo. I asked a question, I would like an answer. You state, as if your words and actions before were not clear enough. I don't know what you're talking about. He says coolly. The roughness in his voice is enough to make your knees wobble and your heart plummet into oblivion. Using the table, you kept your balance and reconstructed yourself under 3 seconds, hoping no one noticed. Your eyes landed on his once again, trying to state your dominance over the situation. But it all went out the window as soon as you saw his shit-eating grin, as if he knew how much his voice affected you, and he reveled in it. You glared even harder, trying to mask whatever he thought he knew. You said, "Please leave me and my friend alone. We're not disturbing anyone." So, he's just a friend? Bakugo's scowl was back, but his voice and eyes said he was genuinely curious, which made you genuinely, well, a little, happy. That is none of your business. You're right, it's not. He leans forward on the table, scowl unwavering. But we're all old friends here, right? He looks around the table for confirmation, to which Kirishima looks like he might be sick. Although the initial shock of them all being here tonight had subsided, you were still in awe as to how much everyone had grown. These weren't just Bakugo's friends. These were the people you hung out with the most back in UA. It was hard to look at them and not remember all the good times you had together. Even, you hate to admit it, Ashido. You hated how your heart flinched at her name every time you heard or thought it. Right. You grind out. Yes, he's a friend from middle school. Oh. Bakugo nods. So there's a lot of history there. Oh, like you're one to talk. You scoffed. The table went silent. Bakugo and Ashido went rigid, and you hated them for it. You don't know what he's trying to do, but you know what he might be implying, and some sick thing inside of you wanted to lead him astray. So you said, "Of course, I've known Sage for ages." Sage. Bakugo mouthed the name, then shook his head. Doesn't sound right. Now he'd completely lost you. What? Your name and his, it doesn't sound right. Then, as if realizing he'd said this aloud, he turned to face the group of people around him. Small, sad smiles attached to their faces. He glared, then turned back to you. Forget what I said. As if he had powers of brainwashing. Yeah, he'd need Shinso for that. There's another old classmate you haven't spoken to in a while. You really did need a vacation. The thought brought you a moment of peace, but then you remembered where you were and your spirits were crushed again. Just don't do it again. You stormed off down the cafe and calmed yourself before sitting back down. You were gone quite a while, Sage murmured. You sigh. It's fine if it's here, but don't ever say that on a date. It's a sure way to get smacked. Sage laughed. Okay, I'll remember that. Ani, you said, taking a sip of your water. Sorry, what? Oni. Okay, I'll remember that. Oni. Right. He smiled, bringing your mood back up. A few minutes flew by. The waiter brought your food on a cart, and another group, this time of 3, left. You were overcome with joy once you saw the burgers. They looked magnificently big. These are my favorite. Trust me, you'll like them. You eyed Sage playfully, then nodded and picked up your burger. On the side were French fries. They looked unsalted, which threw you off a little, but you decided to try them. Thankfully, there was ketchup to even out the dryness. You popped a single fry into your mouth, Sage watching intently. You waved him off, feeling the combination of potato and tomato ratio. You opened your eyes. No salt deduction. You thought again, Sage biting his lip in anticipation. A smile broke out across your face. But overall, 8 out of 10. I'll take it, he says, a smile breaking across his features as well. Oh, hey, did you want to order dessert? Sure, what did they have? I can ask for the menu again. No, you say, munching on more fries. I'll just get what you get. Really? Are you sure about that? Yeah, why not? You ask, licking your fingers. All right. Sage waves the waiter over. He comes and takes Sage's order once again. Sage orders some kind of cinnamon ice cream waffles, which do sound really good, and now your stomach is rumbling again, just as your mouth is watering for the second time. That sounds really good, you say almost to yourself. Yeah, another reason this place is so worth it is their dessert is second to none. Well, in my opinion. You like food a lot, huh? Of course, who doesn't? Sage asks, seemingly genuinely curious. And you have to hand it to him. You can't really name anyone that dislikes food. Yeah, you're right. You laugh, giving up. See? Sage laughs as well, pointing a finger in your direction. The server comes and takes away your dirty dishes before bringing out your desserts. You know, you start running your hand through your hair. We should really do this more often. It's fun hanging out with a friend. I don't do it often. Right, because you don't have any, right? He asks bluntly, but he clearly doesn't know he's being blunt. Sage is still such a clueless kid, you think. Your face droops, tears almost spilling out in a fake cry as you whine. Yes, why did you have to say it like that, though? Oh, I'm sorry. He frowns, putting his hand over yours. Your crocodile tears stop due to his thumb rubbing over your palm. You sigh contently. That actually feels nice. I am a massage therapist. He chuckles, reminding you. Oh, yeah. You did wonders for my muscles. I felt much more relaxed since then. He blushes. Thanks, I'm glad. I want to run my own business one day. Really? You brighten. That's amazing. Yeah. The waiter brings your dessert plates out and you gasp in awe at how good it smells. See? Sage says again, smirking a little. You roll your eyes but can't stop the drool from running down your mouth. As soon as the waiter walks away, you take your fork in your hand and begin gobbling up the sweet divine in front of you. Tastes like something out of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Yum. You lean back, patting your belly. I am full. Yeah, now I just want to take a huge nap. Oh yeah, that sounds nice. You both smile dreamily. Want to check out then? He asks. Sure. You both stand, but it takes you a moment to gain your balance. You manage, though. You and Sage walk to the front, asking for the check. While you wait for the total to be split in half, you slip your phone out and begin scrolling your Pro Hero feed. Once the bill is paid for, Sage walks you to your car, then you two part ways. You sit in your car, waiting for it to warm up, thinking about the people inside. You look through the parking lot, wondering which car was Bakugo's. Again, he popped into your mind without so much thought. You forced him out of your mind, Ashido too. The fact that they had the audacity to act cordial with you pissed you off even more. Yeah, it might have been a stupid high school relationship for Bakugo, but for you, it had been 3 years of your life spent with the person you thought was going to be your forever. It was the best 3 years of your life as well, because in that time you'd loved someone who loved you just as much. At least you thought he had. An abrupt knock on your passenger window startled you out of your thoughts. You couldn't see who it was, but from the dark outline, they looked pretty big. You lowered your hand and reached for the pocket knife you kept hidden under your driver's seat. You called out, "What do you want?" The person bellowed back, seeming to shiver a little. "Open the door, idiot!" Bakugo. Oh, it was Bakugo. Shit, it was Bakugo. What the hell was he doing outside of your car? What the hell was he doing not inside his? What the hell was he doing? Are you gonna make me freeze to death? Sorry. Why were you apologizing? You questioned as you unlocked the door and he hopped in, taking in the comfort of the warm air of the defroster while you watched him, as confused as you were the first time you'd ever spoken to him. Damn, it's cold, he cursed, rubbing his hands together. No shit, you responded. Why are you here? Isn't it obvious? He asked, glaring at you, shaking your head. He stopped rubbing his hands together and looked at you like you were dumb. I need a ride. Didn't you drive here? No. Didn't you come here with friends? Why couldn't you have asked anyone else to drive you home? None of them live as close. I don't live close to you. You countered, folding your arms and drawing your eyebrows down. You'd be surprised. His chuckle was deep, and it left your mouth dry. Bakugo, why didn't you drive here? He rolled his eyes. I didn't want to come in the first place, but that idiot forced me. Everyone's an idiot to you, so why didn't you try being more specific? Your arms were still crossed, and your mouth was still pulled into a frown, but your eyes held amusement. Bakugo looked at you as if he wanted to correct you, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned back in your passenger seat, getting comfortable, then threw you a look. It pinned you in your seat, and you went still, not knowing why you couldn't move. Under that gaze, you had always been unable to do anything of your own control. You guessed it simply still held effect. The scowl from his lips slowly drifted into an amused and playful smile. You glared even harder, now trying to break from the spell you had been placed under, but failing miserably. Bakugo leaned in, and you grew stiff. Sensing your change in attitude, Bakugo backed off. His scowl came back as he looked forward. Please. Then he looked over his shoulder, under his thick lashes. Partner. You looked dejected, biting your lip. That's not fair. I think it's totally fair. He smirked, his arrogance hitting you hard. Sighing, you began pulling out of the parking lot. I hate you, you know? He clutched his shirt where his heart was. Oh, I've heard that one before. I'm sure. You laughed. Your voice drifted into silence. It was kind of awkward. You were still very stiff, not knowing how to act around him, any more than you knew what to say to him. Suddenly, you asked, why did you complain? Then to clarify, about me and Sage, I know we weren't that loud. Bakugo looked at you strangely. There were a lot of looks you could never forget, but this one you don't remember. You don't know the reason for it or what it's trying to say. Bakugo said, I don't know. The confession left you speechless, and the memory of him holding you earlier today in his office sent chills up your spine. But it also made you smile a little. If Bakugo saw it, he didn't bring it up, and soon enough you were pulling into his house. Surprise, surprise, he lived a few blocks away from you. He smiled, looked at you, and said, Thanks, partner, before closing your door and sauntering up his steps. You watched him unlock his door, walk inside, then, with a final look, shut it. You began pulling out of his driveway, noticing the closed garage. His car must be parked in there, you thought. You turned onto the main road and started on the way home, remembering how you once thought Bakugo was your home. How silly your 17-year-old self must have been. Damn! You were throwing pillows across the floor the next day, irritated at your stupidity. How in the gods did you manage to not ask him about the stupid photo? You glared in the mirror. You couldn't even look at your deflated self. Tears poured down your face as Libby tried to console you. She had no idea why you were acting like this in the first place. She really just wanted you to stop throwing tantrums. You were the number 8 hero after all. She couldn't believe this is how you were acting. Tutting, she picked your limp body up off the ground and set you on your couch. Today was Saturday. You woke up from your long night around 9 a.m., then, remembering everything, called Libby to complain and rant. She told you to take a shower and get ready for the day while she stopped to get milk tea and biscuits on her way over. An hour later, she showed up at your doorstep with the sweet little treats in a bag and milk tea in both hands. You assumed she'd knocked with her foot. Smiling, you pulled her inside, grabbed the milk tea in her left hand, and trotted off to the living room. Libby already knew what to do, so she took her shoes off and followed you. You both plopped on the couch. You began telling her the usual, but instead of using Bakugo's given or pro-hero name, you said that guy, which is why she looked like a lost puppy when you finished with, Why didn't I ask? Your body drooped and slid off the couch in a worm-like motion. Now, here you were, crying about it. Why, can I ask you something? She began carefully. You looked up at her from the floor, hands in your lap, and tears stopped by some invisible force. With your nod of approval, she continued, Aren't you supposed to be working on a case with Ground Zero? I'd think that was more important than getting some guy's number. This girl. Wait, some guy's number? You smiled evilly. Oh, Libby, you're completely right. I'll call him right away. You stood in your possessed manner, then in that same manner, walked off toward your kitchen. I'll go then, if that's all right. You turned toward her, confusion written all over your features. Why would that not be all right? She hesitated. Well, because... She averted her eyes and found the courage to meet yours again. Never mind. She stood, dusting herself off. I should get going then. She smiled. I hope you find that girl. It's a shame, really. Livy, don't make me feel even more guilty. You shouted at her, sweat dripping down her head as she tried to smile off your accusation. I'll get going now. Tell Ground Zero I said hi. She walked back toward the door she was at not more than 20 minutes ago. Oh, you should stay. You frowned, whining. She narrowed her eyes a little, sped walk over toward you, and karate chopped you on the head. And you should focus on your work. Ow, okay, sorry. You stared at each other for a few minutes. Then, as if reading each other's minds, you both burst into a fit of laughter. She backed up and for the millionth time said, Okay, now I really have to go. Call Ground Zero. You're supposed to be working on this case together. I'm sure if you actually try, you could solve this case in no time. Her confidence was great and all, but there was way more to it than what she knew. You walked her to her car as she backed out. You smiled at her. When she was ready to leave, you waved and she waved back. Then she drove off and you walked back into your house and called Ground Zero. What? He seemed to just be waking up. His voice was raspy. Your stomach fluttered, but clearing your throat helped you manage to make your voice sound no different from what it did before he spoke. Come over to my house. Now? You heard rustling from the other side, assuming he was just getting out of bed. Yes, now. Your voice sounded too preppy, but it could have just been your nerves. Wait, did you have nerves? There should be no reason for you to have nerves. It's Katsuki Bakugo for... Am I allowed to ask why? Your mind went blank, but the flash of the little girl's face made your eyes well a little. You shoved the feeling, whatever it was, down. Are we not trying to find this girl as fast as possible? For a while, there was no response from the other side of the line. Then Bakugo said, I'm on my way, and hung up. You pulled your phone away from your face and stared at it as if the phone itself had betrayed you in some horrible way. When Bakugo knocked on your door, you already had your things spread out around your family room floor. Your coffee table had been moved to a small corner of the room. There was barely any space to walk. "Did you set up already?" he asked right as you opened the door. "Yeah, you can go look around. You brought the files?" "Course I did," he said, taking his shoes off. Locking your door, then passing him, you said, "I'll make some coffee. We might be here a while." "Actually," Bakugo said, catching you off guard for a split second. You turned to look at him suspiciously, and he turned and looked at you with the same intensity, only his eyes held something more. Something you couldn't quite decipher at that exact moment. "Yeah?" you pegged. Bakugo bit his lip, looked away, then back. "I think we might have a lead." Something like hope struck you. Your mouth stretched into the largest smile you think it's ever stretched. "Yeah?" you asked, giddier this time, excitement bubbling in your throat. Bakugo looked down, then turned away from you, but you thought you saw a smile break over his features as well. "Yeah," he whispered. You squealed. There was no other way to describe what came from your mouth. Jumping up and down, you ran over to his arms and gripped it. Bakugo looked up at you then, your eyes meeting, his holding something like interest as he watched you. "Can we see if it's accurate then?" You nodded hard. "Yes, okay, you're right." Your face went hard as you passed him. Bakugo caught your arm and you turned to face him. You both paused, you waiting for what he was going to say, him waiting for the words to form correctly in his mind. Then, deciding it was better left unsaid, he let go. "I don't like black," was what he ended up saying instead. He was led past you and into your family room. Carefully, you whispered into the air, not sure if you wanted him to hear it or not. "I know." You walked into your kitchen, filling the coffee pot up until it was full. You looked into your cabinet, looked at the single coffee mug, then looked back at Bakugo. Sighing and with some effort, you reached all the way back toward the back of the cabinet. Feeling the familiar mug, you pulled it out from its pocket of darkness. Haven't been used in years. You deserve some fresh air anyway. The only problem was, you weren't sure who should use which mug. In the end, you decided to give Bakugo your usual gray mug and use your old brown cat mug. Hesitantly, you brought them out. When you set them on the coaster that had already been on your coffee table, you took a moment to step back and admire Bakugo. For some reason, you found him calming, but then again, you always have. His presence just seemed to have that effect on you, especially when the air was filled with nothing but silence. Before, you hadn't noticed because your mind was elsewhere, but now you noticed Bakugo's outfit and how comfortable he looked in them. Red plaid Christmas pants hung down to his ankles, almost completely covering his socks, and his hoodie. You covered your mouth before your laughter could escape your lips. The same old hoodie he always wore back in UA, black with a white skull in the middle. It was the exact same sweater, only bigger. You leaned on the wall, crossing your arms as you smiled just the tiniest bit. His gaze was focused on some document. He looked in the zone. His brow wrinkled just then, and he began saying something when he looked up and met your gaze. He stopped himself mid-sentence, confusion crossing over his features, then realization, and finally, a little bit of humor. "Don't let me stop you." You held up your hand in mock. He sighed and waved his hand over while nodding in the same direction. "Come over here," is what they both meant. You kicked up off the wall, picking up the 2 coffee mugs before following his instruction. "What do you find?" you asked, lowering yourself into a crisscross position. Bakugo accepted your mug, holding it to his lips as he looked over the paper once more. He slid it in your direction, sipping from the cup as you took the paper in hand. You set your mug on your wooden floor to read over the piece of paper more carefully. Covering your mouth, you gasped, then looked back at Bakugo, who was silently singing his own praises by smirking at the document in your hand. Bakugo, this... You had no words for him. How did you asked, actually in shock at how fast he'd obtained both a name and an address. He shrugged. I have my ways. You glared at him mockingly, but still, you really wanted to know, so you batted your lashes. Please? Bakugo sighed, setting down his mug and leaning back, holding himself up by his hands as his legs moved in front of him. Again he averted his eyes. You noticed he did that when he was embarrassed. You guessed it was one of the many things that changed over these past few years. I was up all last night doing research. Then he shrugged again. And a few people owed me a few favors. You scoffed, but lightheartedly. You really want to find her, huh? You knew it meant a lot to Bakugo to save this girl, but you didn't think it meant as much to him as it did to you. Wait. You paused for a moment, putting your hand up between you two as you came to a conclusion. So this is why you sounded like a zombie from hell. Bakugo scoffed as well. Yeah, I fell asleep at my desk. He rubbed his neck and got a pretty big repercussion for it. You smiled, knowing how that felt just last week. Maybe? You trailed off, not even sure what you were thinking. I mean, if you want, I could... Your face grew hot. Never mind. What? Bakugo's eyes were on you, but it wasn't like when someone half listens to you and focuses on their intuitive thoughts while nodding along to the conversation. It wasn't half-hearted. It seemed like his entire focus was on you, and not only that, you felt like all of his attention was directed onto you. It did something horrible to your stomach. It made you want to continue talking. I was just gonna say I could try to massage it for you. You rubbed your neck and looked toward your floor. Yeah, he said, then in a clearer tone. Yes, please.